So it is my pleasure to welcome you to the IPS-Nathan lecture series by Mr. Philip Yeo, our 16th SR-Nathan Fellow for the Study of Singapore. Today, Mr. Yeo will be delivering his first lecture titled Charting Singapore's Economic Transformation. Following his lecture, Mr. Yeo will take questions from the audience in a Q&A session. The Q&A session will be chaired by Mr. Chen Kai-Fong, Permanent Secretary, Information and Development at the Ministry of Digital Development and Information. Before we begin, please allow me to go over some housekeeping rules for the event. Thank you for joining us today at the auditorium. Please be reminded to switch your mobile phones to silent mode. The lecture is being streamed live on Facebook. It will also be recorded and uploaded onto our IPS website and our social media platforms later. Please submit your comments and questions at any time during the lecture through the Facebook comments. For our audience members here at the auditorium today, please step up to the mic during the Q&A session to ask your questions. We would also like to hear your views on the event. There will be a link in the feed at the end of the lecture and a QR code which you can scan to submit your feedback. Director of IPS, Janadas Devon, will now deliver his opening remarks. Director, please.
Welcome, everyone. Philip Yeo, our SR-Nathan Fellow for this year, is sui generis. That's Latin for Philip Yeo, one kind one. And it's very difficult to introduce him. So I will tell two stories, which I heard from him first, many years ago. He may not remember the stories. The stories are not exactly about him, but about his mentor and guru, Dr. Goh Keng Swee, but it tells you a lot about him. The first is a story, both stories involve, I think, when you were in MINDEF with him in the early years. Director, what was it, planning? I can't remember what it was, but anyway. One day, at that time, we had pig farms in Singapore. And the pig farms were causing a lot of problems. Singaporeans were also complainers then, and people complained about the smell of pigs, but they also wanted to eat pork. And so how to solve this problem? So Dr. Goh calls Philip Yeo, then 25 years old? Something like that. Very young man, and calls him in and says, look, I've had an idea. Why do we get one of these disused super tankers? Buy them cheap, put all the pigs on the super tankers, and sail the ship out to South China Sea. So he asked Philip Yeo to go and research this idea. So Philip Yeo did, and a few days later came back and says, Dr. Goh, pigs don't sweat, which is why they roll around in the muck. You put them on a super tanker in the middle of the ocean, they will all die of heat stroke. You will have char siu, but not pigs. So that was the end of that idea. Another idea, Dr. Goh, he reads in some magazine about krill and how krill contains very high protein. And this story calls up again Philip and says, there's this story, krill is very cheap. Actually, the fishermen, when they catch the krill, they throw the krill away. So why don't you go and collect all the krill free of charge, we don't have to pay, and then we use it to feed the army. Which, this time round, Philip didn't do sufficient research. He did as he was told, caught the krill, and then we ended up, and I remember this because I was in the army at that time. This was early 70s. Dr. Goh had just come back to defense from Ministry of Finance. We had krill for breakfast, krill for lunch, krill for dinner. At the end of 1 month, Philip went to Dr. Goh and says, enough, you're going to have a revolt on your hands. So that was the end of krill. I tell these stories because they illustrate, like no other story I've heard, how our founding fathers were cranks. And there's a definition of genius, I can't remember who it was, who defined genius as that zigzag flash of lightning in the brain. And there is nobody who illustrated that more in the political leadership than Dr. Goh. And nobody in the civil service who illustrated that more than Philip Yeo. Zigzag flash of lightning in the brain. Not all cranky ideas are accurate or good. So you actually need the Philip Yeo in the first guise to go and tell the politician, sir, you're going to get char siu, not pigs. Second idea, you also need somebody like Philip Yeo to try out cranky ideas. So this weird combination of the ability to speak truth to power and also willingness to try out crazy things is what produced the Singapore of today. Right? If you only have people who take the safe way, the predictable way, we wouldn't have got the Singapore of today. Now, I have not read the remarks that were prepared for me because it's very difficult to capture Philip Yeo unless you've known him or worked with him, neither of which I've done. But certainly, I'm old enough to remember the Philip Yeo who played such a huge seminal role in the development of Singapore. I won't summarize what he has to say, except to say that you will hear plenty of evidence of that zigzag flash of lightning. That's genius. So, without much ado, please, Philip.
Thank you so much, Director. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Philip Yeo to begin his first lecture titled, Charting Singapore's Economic Transformation. Mr. Yeo, please.
Okay, let me put up the first slide. This slide is important for Singapore and it's also for me. From 1960 to 65, I was happy in HAI and the library. And in 1966, I went off to Toronto. I came back in 70 as an industrial engineer. So my whole career started from 1970 when I spent my first job, other than shop, 1 month with finance, was Ministry of Defense. So I've been working with Ministry of Defense from 1970, which is the same time as skill intensive, from 1970 to 1994. Most people don't know that my payroll, even when I was EDB, I was still in defense. When I moved from EDB to HC in 1994, I was always in. What's important is that during my 1970 to 94, although I was also EDB, all my work was industry, defense industry. I produced mortar bombs, M16, anti-aircraft ammunition, built warships, rebuilt the Skyhawks. So all my career has always been industry. So very naturally, when Singapore got in trouble, I ended up in EDB. And EDB will continue the same economic role. We can see the curve that we have to move to more and more particular industries. So in a sense, if I look at this calendar here, this chart here is from 1970 to 2006. It's always been economic. So let me go to the next one, the phases. I think most Singaporeans are aware, actually we took off only in 1970. The British left Singapore in 1969, 70, and my first job in defense was to create jobs for Singaporeans, retrenched by the British Army, and that's how I ended up building up the defense industry to create jobs for Singaporeans. So the next phase was capital intensive, of which is important, that we have to go into more and more labor is constrained, from unemployment to almost full employment by the 1980s, and then technology, which I will continue. So my whole career is from the 70s to the 1990s to 2000. Now, where we are today, everybody knows that, so I won't emphasize on that. Now, this is an important chart. When I took over EDB in 86, I was a board member of EDB 82 to 85. I was a pump site in defense. I was also chairman computer board in defense industry, so I was there. So I realized in EDB in 1986, how can we contribute to the GDP of Singapore? At that time, we had about trying to aim for 25% share of GDP, which is a tough number. And at least 20% of employment of Singaporeans must be industry. But today, look at it. Employment of Singaporeans in industry today is about 12%, 15%. but our output is much higher. Our manufacturing sector is hard to keep at 25 because the labor is constraints. To really look at Singapore, 15% of our employees of Singaporeans are working for industries that produce 20% of GDP. It's very significant. Very few Singaporeans are aware of that. Most of our industries that are manufacturing are export. There is no local market. 85% of our economy is services, which is domestic. Maybe for logistics or ship repair, shipping. Most of the industries that we have in Singapore is that we have less than 15% of population in manufacturing. We're producing 19% to close to 20%, depending on the year, of the GDP. What's interesting to look at the numbers, I asked for breakdown. Electronics, multinational. Chemicals, multinational. Biomedical, multinational. You look at the share of the value added, very high. And you look at precision engineering, transport, and general manufacturing. These are more local companies. The value added is low. So from these two data, you can see that the multinational companies contribute a very large percent of the economic sector. And also they give jobs to our local precision engineering and biomedical engineering, general manufacturing. So we need to that combination. Why do we push for manufacturing? I remember I had a long dinner with Lee Kuan Yew. With manufacturing, I don't depend on my neighbors. If I try to sell services to my neighbors, they will never buy. So what they have done is manufacturing is key for us to get out of Singapore. And Dr. Goh played a very important part. When I came back from Toronto in 1970, my first job, I was trying to escape the PSC, which I'm at PSC here, because they didn't offer me a job for 1 month. I applied for a job at a company called Litton Industries. Litton Industry, like Texas Instruments, was one of the semiconductor companies in Singapore. So my first job offered me as an engineer, industrial engineer with Litton Industry. The PSC said, sorry, we can't let you go, you are bonded. So I stayed on. Then I complained, how about EDB? You also cannot go because EDB is statutory body. For 2 months, so 2 job offers. Litton Industries rejected, EDB rejected. How about going to the Ministry of Finance? So I ended up in finance for 1 month. After 1 month, I complained, this is not an engineering job, doing budget work. Oh, they're looking for assistant engineer in MINDEF, so that's it. So I hired out in MINDEF out of my own free will. Now, what you can see in Singapore that we have really moved. When I first joined in 1970, came back, Singapore was making magnetic cores. Any of you heard? Magnetic memory cores, put a wire through. That's how we did. Very low value, but create a lot of jobs. And Singaporeans create a lot of jobs. So then we went to the next phase. So today we are now more balanced. Unlike many countries around Singapore, we are not dependent on one sector. We are actually grown, as I explained, the share, precision engineering, which makes a lot of key parts for the disk drive, electronics and semiconductor. We still have a semiconductor industry, which is important. By the way, I set up chartered semiconductor in 1987, and the same year as TSMC. Unfortunately, TSMC had the full support of the government. The Singapore government says, leave it to the multinational. That's what happened. Energy chemicals are there. Then you have the aerospace. In aerospace, we are quite... So if we look at Singapore, we are more diversified than Taiwan. Taiwan has only one industry, semiconductor. We are more balanced, and partly because, unlike Taiwan, most of the companies we have are multinational. In Taiwan, most of the companies are local. I remember years ago when I used to go to Taiwan, Taiwan has a tariff of 30%. Singapore has no tariff. Taiwan has a sizable population we don't have. So in a sense, unlike Taiwan, we have to depend on multinational investments. They give us what Dr. Goh called, they bring us technology, they bring us production know-how, and the most important is management and markets. And Dr. Goh is a very key person in the economic of EDB. When I was in defense, he was still involved in... The defense industry was also created by him to create jobs for Singaporeans. Most of you are not aware, I've been involved in ammunition, tanks. I produced the first corvette for the Navy in 1987, rebuilt the Skyhawk. So all this was because to create jobs. We have gone through that phase. Now, everybody knows this. Now, our industry, because of our population size, we have to constantly upgrade. There's no way for us to take on labor-intensive jobs. So if you look at transformation, it's that way. Now, we have done everything by multinational. And in semiconductors, we've done it, but the key industry we had in the early 70s was semiconductor. Long before anybody appreciated, long before, besides the own chip repair. And as far as I'm concerned, the semiconductor industry has given us very broad base. The same skills are here today. We don't produce one particular company, but we have many more companies here. This is it. We are in chip design. We are in wafer fabrication. We produce all the ingots here. We do assembly tests. Now, assembly test is the most labor intensive. So we move, when I was EDB, I helped encourage them to move to Penang. So you see a lot of the assembly tests in Penang actually from Singapore. Same as the people there, because we use Penang as our more of the labor, and we focus on upgrade. So Singapore and Penang has a very unique relationship. Unfortunately, Johor doesn't have the same. Let me go on to here. Okay, 1985, I was still in defense, pump sec. So I was asked by Minister of Finance at that time, Trade Industry, Tony Tan, can you be the chairman of Skill Development Fund? So also was a problem. So September 1985, when I was still in defense, I took a job as chairman, Skill Development Fund. Then I realized the economy was really sinking. So can you please come over to EDB, half-time in defense, half-time from January 86. I said, well, I will try, but I gave up. I just moved over, remained as a pump sec defense. I moved OEDP full-time in January 86. If you look at the data here, this is our first recession. Remember, manufacturing is a very key component. In 1986, the employment was more than 20% of Singaporean population. At one time, it was more than 25, but 20 has gone down. It was a big shock to us. That's what I did. Now, EDB has never advertised in the whole history, from 1961 to 1986. So when I tried to market this advertisement with the Wall Street, Financial Times, the Ministry of Trade Industry says, sorry, got no budget. So I complained to my minister, Lee says, oh, got no budget. Why not use some of your reserves? So I had to dig into my own pocket and run this advertisement. And this advertisement, I went around to see my good friends in America. These are all well-known companies. Some are still around. And they signed off. And this was the first time we realized we have how to promote Singapore. Because at that time, one of the key problems of 1985 recession was our CPF was 25%, your contribution, 25% by the company. At 50% CPF, you killed all the companies. So our 1985 recession, I always believe, is self-created. Self-inflicted. Anyway, after I retired from EDB in 2010, some of my fellow colleagues signed this off for me as my reputation of working. Anyway, it's a joke. Now, our recovery was good. We pushed for more and more high-value production, especially trying to move away from low-value-added industry or refining. The services sector, we took on 3 new sectors. IT sector, business headquarters, medical services I tried to promote too. And these were the services we tried because in manufacturing, I can automate. I can produce higher productive. In services, it's harder. So my rule of thumb is here to upgrade manufacturing than to provide services unless the services are higher value. And next was how to diversify the regional market, and those are things. Let me take the chemical sector. Singapore has been a refining center over 100 years, but the value added is very low. We produce refined products for gasoline, for kerosene, that's it. And we are selling these products to the region. The low value added is very low. So the key constraints was how do we create more jobs. The only way to create more jobs in the chemical sector is to go down the Christmas tree, go down to more and more products. So it came my idea was, if I need to go down the petrochemical route, I need land. And land is not so easily available in Singapore. In fact, I went to look at Sentosa Island, and then the tourist promotion was horrified. They're going to steal the island. But anyway, Sentosa Island is too small, it's only 400 to 450 hectares, not very big. What I wanted was 3,000 hectares. Very ambitious because my idea is, if I have 3,000 hectares, I can have at least 3 petrochemical complexes. I can produce 3 million tons of ethylene. Every petrochemical complex is 1 ethylene million tons. So minimum 3, better still 4 or 5 to create critical mass. At the same time, I want the chemical industry to be linked to each other. So one A produce something, goes to B, produce, goes to C, so it's integrated. In itself, it's almost a full cluster rather than standalone. And this idea was to create the most, and secondly, I want it on the island where nobody lives. I went to Rotterdam, I went to Houston, I saw all the houses around them. Every now there's a fire. So I said, no, the only way is to put them on an island. So I asked the government for a budget of 7 billion. They nearly fainted. So usually I thought, okay, we start with 500 hectares, 900. Eventually, today we have 3,200 hectares. That's almost 8,000 acres of land is still available. But the chemical industry is changing, so now we have to look for what else can we do. So I'm spending time with some of my EDB colleagues. What industries can we put in Jurong Island besides the petrochemical complex? Now this is a good example of, anyway I skipped that one. Now this is how we define, you see, refinery is low value added. Now we are down to specialty chemicals. Petrochemical is there. So EDB colleagues are chasing specialty chemicals, more high value, lower volume, with good prices, and less dependent. But at the same time, what else can we do? So the big challenge for Singapore is how to keep on moving ahead, because the key challenge for us, how to remain linked to the world, to manufacturing, not just service in a region. So now we come to what we have. Now, what most of you are not aware, when I try to go down to pharma production, we have no land. So I asked my EDB colleagues, can we reclaim some more land? So from near the shipyards in Jurong, where I call the Tuas area, I asked them to help to reclaim. And they reclaim about 300, 280 hectares. So all the pharma industries are there, and they're all co-located. They share the same utility, they share all the needs. In a sense, they are very compact. If you go to any pharma company in America or US, it's one company here, one company there, all scattered all country. Here it's all packed. Today we produce 8 of our top biological drugs in the world. We don't own them. We produce the drugs for all the brand new companies. We have no generics. Generics are India, China, Thailand. We are all proprietary because the margins are high. But it's an industry that we have packed together, and we have trained people for the industry. Every time there's a new drug, we hope they can bring it to Singapore. So today we have a good, these are all the companies here, all brand names. Unfortunately, we don't have local names. These are all international names, and these are names you do not see in Taiwan, for sure, right? Not in Hong Kong. Now, and we continue to grow. We have to continue to grow because the biomedical industry, biological industries are most of the drugs are for cancer and other difficult diseases, but on the other hand, the value is very high. Every time there's a new drug, we try to bring them to Singapore, EDB colleagues, and their job bring here. Why? Every drug has a patent life of 17 years. The first 7 years plus is clinical trial, and there's no revenue. When a drug is approved by FDA, the start is 10 years only. So when I bring them to Singapore, we give them the support and the tax holiday, they got 10 years of pure cream. Beyond that, somebody will then do a generics. Harder to do with cancer drugs, but that's it. Now, all those things we have done, most of the Singaporeans are aware. Now I'm no longer EDB. I spend my time needling them. I says, are you worried? So I thought, my good time, I can ask Kai Fong to come and worry us. Yeah. Kai Fong last served as MD EDB. And as you know, EDB is a place where we travel with one suitcase. You got 5 shirts and 4 trousers, Monday to Friday. No check-in luggage. You want check-in luggage, you can join another ministry. Yeah. So let me just put it this way. Our operating environment has really changed. You all read in the news. We have geopolitical, we have trade tariffs. The tariffs are going serious. We might be caught in it. Tax incentives. Our tax incentives no longer be useful. And that's a big challenge we have to modify. But we are lucky we are in a region. Our ASEAN region, I always tell my colleagues, it's an important region. And most of us better learn to speak, besides Mandarin, Bahasa. Very young people don't understand that because our neighborhood is still lots of Malaysia, Indonesia combined together can give us about only 300 million. Competition for talent. The biggest challenge for Singapore. Last year, we had only 35,000 babies. That's it. So we need to go and kidnap. And when I was EDB, I specialized in kidnapping. I take young kids from a region, Vietnam, India, China, bring them in young. Bring them in young at 15, you can indoctrinate them. They grow up to be Singaporeans. If you bring them over 21, they will not be Singaporeans. So if you really want to grow Singapore, keep them the best and brightest from the region. Free education in Singapore from Sec 3 to JC2. then you got a new Singaporeans, ready-made. Right? And AI is an area where I was just reading an article I sent to Kai Fong. DeepSeek, it sounds very simple. What's happening now is not DeepSeek. They are applying DeepSeek in every industry. The key is not AI. The key is how to use it. Depends on the industry. Whether I can use it in drug development, I can use it in manufacturing, I can use it in banking. So the key is that AI will possibly change. The biggest difficulty was that AI will also change employment. So employment is another area where I really can. For example, there's a doctor. I say, no, when you go for X-ray, you got to depend on the X-ray technician to take a look. But a lot of the AI can do of the mundane work, which means the demand for skill set will change. The only industry that is safe are medical services. They are still safe. You need doctors, you need nurses. Every other industry, whether accounting, auditing, are all under stress. Now, nobody knows how bad, but it will be happening. And these are the key risks. So if I were the Singapore Business Federation, I would be worrying. These are the issues that we have to worry. How are we going to, because nobody knows Mr. Trump has been in office for less than 100 days already, and we're all in a spin. Last time I was watching his speech, we call reciprocal tariff. If we put a tariff of 10%, you will put 10%. So you're going to change a lot. In America, for example, Mexico and Canada, all exports to the United States is tariff-free. Now he wants to slam 25%. He just get a reprieve for 1 month for the automotive industry because automotive is well integrated between Canada, US, and Mexico. There was a lot of disruption. Uncertainty. I think politically we got a challenge for our young government because who knows where we are going. But key for us is Singapore has to be prepared. We have to look at the advantages of each of these sectors. What else can we do? So in that sense, looking forward, our EDB officers will have to start thinking how do we navigate the changes. Now, I emphasize to my colleagues, I work a lot with Indonesia. I started Batam Bintang Industrial Estate in 1990. By 1992 was full employment. I moved to Vietnam. Today in Vietnam, VSIP was my project in 1994. Now there are 18 parks in Vietnam, but the same participation. I started at Bangalore IT Park in 1995, 1996, Shaxi will know. Today we are in Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Pune, and Bombay. So I will look at Vietnam, we have our mark there. In India, we have a mark. In Indonesia, we have a mark. China we have only Wuxi and Suzhou. So we have to look at, maybe we can take advantage, position Singapore to take advantage of our neighborhood, which means we must accept Singaporeans to get out of comfort of Singapore and go and manage companies there, not just sit at home waiting for government vouchers. Now, I mentioned about talent. This is an important thing. So I was telling Tai In Chai, can you please go and kidnap, because America is cutting the NIH budget. My son is a victim there. Normally, for every dollar of research, you get another 30 cents for supporting a lab, electricity, water. So NIH has cut down to 15%, which means if I'm a professor, I have to let go students. And if students let go, it's quite a difficulty for them. Worse, they announced that they will freeze all probationary officers. Anyone in the US government who's a probation, means a fresh officer, your job is gone. It should be the other way. You should take in the young ones, maybe retrench some of the middle managers, but that's the way it does. So many of our young PhD students today are out of job. So if I were the Singapore government, I go out there and kidnap all of them. Yeah. And they say, DeepSeek is not just an AI. It's the same way as we apply IT throughout. I remember when I set up Singapore Computer System in the 1980s, applying SCS, computer science, to all the manufacturing. And those days I was using computers, mini computers. In the same way, DeepSeek and the similar, whether it's from Alibaba, will have great impact on manufacturing and services. So I hope our people are churning up. I was just read an article that China has more than 300 colleges set up to train people in AI. Not all will succeed, but you produce at the end of the day, there will be a critical mass that will come up. So maybe I ask Kai Fong to come and entertain us now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yeo, for your lecture. For those watching the lecture on Facebook, please submit your comments and questions through the Facebook comment box. For our audience members here, please step up to the mic to ask your questions. May I now invite Mr. Chen Kai-Fong, Permanent Secretary, Information and Development at the Ministry of Digital Development and Information, to start the Q&A session.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Mr. Yeo. I don't think we need the mics.
Okay.
So as you can tell, Mr. Yeo's style is very breezy and quick, and because I think he wants to get down to discussing and to having a great debate with you guys. So before we start, can I just set some house rules first? Keep the questions short. I know many people will want to make comments. Just make a short comment. More importantly, questions so that Mr. Yeo can answer. Secondly, we try to keep to the content of the speech, really on economic strategy. There's a lot more that you can ask him later, but let's focus on economic strategy, transformation, and maybe his time at EDB. As you would know, I had the honor of actually, in a sense, following in Mr. Yeo's footsteps in EDB, and one of the things I always remember is when I came in, there was only one rule that was there throughout, which is that trolley bag rule. Everywhere you go, you carry one trolley bag, no matter where you go, no matter whether it was a 2-week trip, no matter whether you've gone to Davos and you had to brave minus 20 degrees Celsius, it was a one trolley bag rule. And we even maintained it to this day. I don't know about EDB now, I imagine it's the case. Not because we are holding on to it, because I think it's a symbol of what EDB stands for and what Singapore's economic transformation is about, right? We stay lean, we stay mean, we're always hustling, we're always hungry, and we're always chasing, and we got to move fast. Maybe you want to explain, why did you institute the one-bag trolley rule?
Well, I arrived in New York on a Sunday at rest. Monday morning, I wake up early breakfast. I leave the hotel, one bag, because we are going to several cities. If you want to check your luggage, go buy your luggage, because you change planes and then there's delay. So hang on to your luggage for dear life. One luggage. So the rule is 5 shirts, 4 pants.
That's for boys, that's for guys, no? How about for women?
Good, ladies. Now, the ladies have to roll up their dresses like sausages. Because otherwise, the ladies know smart. They roll dresses as simple. And always dress. Only one coat. That's the coat you wear. So for the lady officers who travel with me, have to learn the same way. Now, it sounds a bit cruel because I can wake up in New York and I go on to Janadas, Chicago. I go to Kokomo to look at Delco's equipment under the car. Then I fly to San Francisco. So I get 27 hours advantage. Mm-hmm. My working hour is 27 hours. Because I moved from New York. By the time I reach California at 11 o'clock, I actually have 27. So that's the way. And the other key reason is that we have no time for laundry. You do laundry, you lose out laundry. So you make sure you got 5 shirts, 4 pants, 5 underwear for sure. I 5 socks, yeah. And the lady officers adjust, to be fair. All my lady, when I first joined EDB in 86, there were only 5 lady officers. Shirley Chan and a few other people. By the time I left EDB, 50% are ladies. So I think I'm better diversity than Mr. Trump.
Yeah, we always say that the ladies in EDB are always one of a kind, because they are the ones who volunteer for all the difficult assignments, like going to Mumbai, going to China. Okay, great. So maybe let's launch off from where you ended, because we are now in a new phase. When you joined EDB in manufacturing, you could argue that actually the conditions were very ripe for the manufacturing takeoff, right? Globalization, MNCs were expanding. Yep. In fact, just a factoid for you, right? When the semiconductors are being talked about quite a bit right now, actually the semiconductor industry was one of the first industries to offshore. Within less than 10 years, 7, 8 years from Silicon Valley, they offshored. First place they offshored because it was and Mr. Yeo talked about the assembly and testing part of it, which was really the low value connecting wires. The first place they offshored was actually Hong Kong, because back then American workers were paid $2.50 an hour, Hong Kong 25 cents. Yeah. Thereafter came Taiwan, 19 cents. Yes. And guess where Singapore was? Yeah. Third in line, 11 cents. Yes. And that's really how we started. Yeah. And today is a completely different story, right, if you think about it. Sure. We are probably the most expensive. Yep. You compare. Hong Kong doesn't really have a manufacturing industry, but Taiwan, Shenzhen, of course. right? We are also, land is very expensive, but more critically now we have carbon as a constraint. Plus you have tariffs, you have a retreat from globalization, you have even the prospect of US and China contest. So do you still believe that manufacturing is the way to go? And if so, what are the areas that Singapore can compete?
Sure. Well, in semiconductor, up to Mr. Biden's time and Trump's recently, the US has lost all the semiconductor other than Intel. AMD, for example, I used to know them, sold their foundry in Dresden, Germany to Global Foundries. IBM in Fishkill, upstate New York, I used to visit them, sold their wafer foundry also to Global Foundries. Who is Global Foundry? Abu Dhabi. So Abu Dhabi, MD, Mohamed asked me, Mr. Yeo, we want to put all these companies together, and Singapore, we also want to buy Chartered Semiconductor, your company, to create Global Foundries. I said, well, if we buy Dresden, Singapore, and Fishkill, New York, and Singapore, what's your plan? We want to build a wafer fab foundry in Abu Dhabi. Obviously, I kept quiet and laughed. See, we never succeeded. But I warned them that a global foundry, in this business, you must continually invest. You cannot stop. So I jokingly teased the CEO of Mohamed. I said, semiconductor foundry is having a fence mistress, very expensive to maintain. And that's what happened. You look at TSM, every year he has to invest further and further, from 5 micron to 4 micron trim. So it's very challenging. So either you have the money or you have the skill. If you don't have the skill, for example, TSMC set up a factory in Phoenix, Arizona. They have to export 500 Taiwanese there, engineers. And don't forget, and semiconductor industry is 24/7. There's no such thing as thank God it's Thursday, which is American culture.
Yeah, after the earthquake, straight away the Taiwanese engineer went to fix it.
If you visit a semiconductor plant in Taiwan, Hsinchu and gone, they even have dormitories nearby because you are working on shift. 3 shift or 4 shift. You want to have, thank God it's Friday, you cannot build manufacturing semiconductor. And that's why I'm very pessimistic that America will succeed. Intel is now for sale. Broadcom is looking at Intel, and then Trump squeezed TSM, can you please buy the foundry of Intel? So the company, the biggest reason why Intel is in this bad position because when Apple came out with iPhone in 2007, he used Motorola chips. Intel was not interested. Then Apple switched to ARM chip. ARM chips are one designed by a British group. There's no IT phone that use Apple phone that uses Intel chips. They are stuck at PCs and desktop computers. So Intel lost it. The key fate for Intel failing was 2007. They didn't want to produce the chip for the phone, which is the biggest mistake. I thought it's no value. Today, in everything that we have in the car, electric car, your home, it's semiconductor. Semiconductor is more valuable to us today than anything else. If you look at electric car, the key is the battery is chemistry. The battery is DC. So when you charge the car, you must charge DC. When the car will have to convert from DC to AC, you control the induction motor that control the wheel. The semiconductor chip, the energy management is semiconductor. That's it. So like it or not, semiconductor today is so pervasive. So Americans now realize that semiconductor. So every country now in the world are trying to have their own national semiconductor. Japan is trying to do the same. So in Singapore, as far as we're concerned, if we can find our niche, we can stay there. But we need good engineers. A good engineer, well trained. We need to have. I remember when I got Suisse to be my MD, I brought him back from New York, and I said I want to build 25 wafer fab. He nearly fainted. Why? 25 wafer fab needs a lot of water. Electricity is one thing, water. Water has no substitute. Electricity, I can use diesel, can petrol, and what have you, or wind. So 25 wafer fab require lots of water. So Swiss said, yeah, we cannot talk to the PUB, they will never agree. So we came up with the idea of new water. New water is actually EDB's idea. If I cannot get water, I have to recycle. And although Swiss promote, you can drink it, but don't drink it. Because the recycled water is pure, no impurities. You have one more water. So that is important for deionized water for semiconductor. So energy intensive, water intensive. So that's why in Singapore now we have a sizable semiconductor. We are now probably number 3. And we produce a lot of common parts that goes to everywhere. Most of our chips now go to automotive EV. So most Singaporeans don't know that all the chips that we produce are really, we don't do assembly tests or ship it out. We do the components and it goes out. We do the casting, we do the chip, the design, and then it goes out. But the thing is that most Singaporeans don't see our manufacturing because it's all in Jurong. They only know Orchard Road, they know. So Singaporeans do not know that out in Jurong, under DCC, that's where the export of Singapore is. That's where the job is. And don't forget, the multinationals make a lot of money, they keep the money in Singapore banks. Whereas some people might not. That's why the doctor created the US dollar. Because all the multinationals, at one time General Motors was here. I remember they told me, oh, Mr. We have about $500 million US in Singapore. Why? Singapore's a safe place. They make the money, get a tax holiday, they keep the money here. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, but so that's really, kudos to you and the team, right? You've really created some engines of growth, right? You have electronics, you have chemicals, and biomed, pharma. But when I was at EDB, if I get a penny for every time someone asks me, so what's the industry of the future? Actually, my answer, I have no answer. Maybe you have an answer for us. So what do you think as now we should be focusing on? What industries should?
Well, any day you have to make a product. But more and more of the product requires much more software. So even if I do an electric car, the battery, induction, the AC-DC converter, the induction motor, I still need the software to do the chip management. So it's not just hardware alone. So we really want to build, you need to build more and more software people. Because a lot of the systems have become, it's just like using DeepSeek. DeepSeek does the training of the chip, buy all your data, but the key is inference. In the AI chip, you train with a database, steal people's information, but then you have to use it to infer. So the inference challenge is there. So in the same way, Singapore must find a way to do the inference job. And basically know-how, the key constraint to software is talent. It's people intensive. So unless we get population increase by more than 35,000 babies, if I have a choice, I'd like to recruit another 10,000, a few thousand, kidnapping everybody here. Because the software is skill intensive. We can't survive just on our own 35,000 babies. It makes no sense. If I were in the government, I say I'll go and kidnap or kill kids. I was with Mr. Lee Kuan Yew in Hanoi, when Mrs. Lee was sick, and myself and him and his SO, and he gave a talk to all the communist leaders of Vietnamese government. They asked him to give a talk. And after the talk, and then we had dinner with all the deputy prime ministers. And one deputy prime minister said, Mr. Lee, Minister Yeo steals our people. Because I brought in 550 kids from Vietnam, Sec 3. I paid for all the Sec 3 to JC2. But one condition, every student that comes to Singapore under my scholarship, under A-star, must A in every subject. So they thought, joke. I said, well, I'm using my money, and you are smart kids. There's no reason why you cannot get A and have a good life. And to prove the point, the first batch, I brought in 100. I sent 10 of them back. That's it, the message got through. So compared to Ministry of Education, I'm a harder guy. Because my belief, if you know how to balance your time, you can work hard and still have a life. No excuse. And they all did well. So the Vietnamese came here, students from India, China, all they came here did well. I interviewed one girl, father is a farmer in Skudai or Sinai. Mm-hmm. Every morning she wakes up at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, take the school bus, pick up a milk run, they collect different kids. They reach Singapore school 7 o'clock. From primary 1 to A level, every year perfect score. Why not? So I gave her a scholarship, bachelor's and PhD, now Singaporean. I need to kidnap more of those kids. I went to Penang, Chief Minister Lee Kuan Yew, please don't steal my people. So he had a big ceremony. He said, Philip, I got one boy and one girl, the highest students with A level, or Malaysian equivalent A level. So there and there, I offered a scholarship to one of the boys. The girl, the father wanted to send to the US, so I took the boy. He came to Singapore to do physics at NUS. I subsidized his scholarship through one of my companies. So if I were running government, kidnapping is a key function.
So if I were to follow up on this and ask you a more sensitive question, so if I'm a young Singaporean, I'll be very worried now. Because there'll be so much competition, all this kidnapping of people. What do you say to the young Singaporean, you see?
Well, Kishore, my good friend Kishore, my son is complaining, you bring out these Vietnamese kids, and our JC give me a hard time. Why they are hungry? Why can't Singapore kids compete with them? The Vietnamese kids come here, they stay in the dormitory, I put them in NUS High, RI, and so, from Mondays to Friday in school, Saturday, Sunday, they stay in the dorm studying. If Singaporeans cannot compete, it's their fault. I mean, ultimately, because these kids are really hungry. My first batch, I first took in SGI International. The first batch, I have to sell SGI International in 2008, 2006. So I gave away the first IB certificate to 54 of them. Who was the top student? My Vietnamese scholar. All 8 subjects, 5 prizes. He came to Singapore the first year, could not speak English. In fact, I remember I brought Tama to meet us, so on. Tama asked the girl, for first year I was crying every day. But they learned. The key factor that drives these people is hunger. If Singapore kids are not hungry, good luck to them. I don't make a very good politician.
So if you were a young student, because there are a couple of them in our midst today, what would be your advice for them in terms of what to study? You talk about AI, right? AI is going to take our jobs, right? So what will you advise them to do?
Well, like it or not, it's easier to study a hard science or engineering. I can always learn soft subjects. As an engineer, I can read philosophy, I can read economics, I can read history, not the other way around. So by right, you have a certain core of, in fact, some of the US universities got this liberal study. They're not liberal, no? They got hard sciences, engineering, and they have humanities built around it. If you are pure humanities, unless you become a journalist or writer, it's tough. So in a sense, you like it or not, you have to take some good maths, physics, chemistry, and then you can do the soft subject. So really, if you look at education, it's good to have a hard and soft combination. Purely soft, I don't see how. The guy who has a hard science can always pick up softer subjects. So if an education system which you have fundamentals of maths, physics, in America, for medical students, because they have to do a bachelor's degree, to apply to medical school, they must have physics. You don't have physics, you cannot do engineering. You don't have mathematics, you cannot do engineering. So basic is mathematics and physics. Chemistry you can learn, biology you can read, philosophy you can read too. So like it or not, the education must have a core of hard core in the center and a soft. So you want an all-rounded person, a person who can understand philosophy, history, but you need the good sciences. So an education system that is purely liberal all the way, I don't know how we're going to survive. In Harvard Business School, when I was there, we have 3 kinds of students in our class. I was there in 74, 76. 35% are engineers, the business school. Another 30% are business studies, undergraduate. Another remainder are the philosophers, boys. So when it comes to do number crunching, the poor liberal arts English guys are lost. It's not their fault because, like you're not in the business school, you have to crunch numbers, you got to do projection and financial analysis. So when I get annual report like this, I can read very fast. I look at the numbers and then say where the company is going. For them, they look at where's the poetry, So we used to disturb our liberal arts and we used to sit down and help them. Because when it comes to writing, they're very good. So I asked them, can you help write the case studies for us? So you need a combination of the 3 groups of people, people who are numerical, people who are also literal, and hopefully a balanced education. So a good education system must have hard and soft subjects. So if I were you, I would take a hard one because it's easy to learn soft subjects, but it's hard to do. So a good maths, good physics are fundamental. And I remember I met some people who are neuroscientists. What's a PhD? Astronomy. So I said, why do you study astronomy? Because the brain is very difficult. There are many neurons. It's almost like a galaxy. So like it or not, many of neuroscientists are physicists. Definitely not poets for sure.
So in your presentation, actually what you charted was really an extraordinary story. And it seems like it's only the highlight reel, right? Everything is a success. But surely there are ones that got away, surely there are some mistakes, surely some regrets. Maybe can I ask you to share with the audience, what are some of the things that you look back and say, oh, I shouldn't have done this?
Well, the most difficult challenge for me when I was in EDB is I don't have enough manpower. There are more projects I want to do. And secondly is my costs, land costs, labor costs. So in EDB, I have to be selective. What are the industries I can bring here? What I have to forgo? So therefore, I came to the idea, maybe I can move some of these companies I cannot attract to my neighborhood. So at least I can service them. I can also supply parts and components. So when I started Bottom Industrial Park, the reason was very simple. I came to EDB in January 86. By 1987, full employment. The government slammed on me a worker levy quota. So I got a company like Thomson Electronics came to see me. We are making components, devices for the TV, but now your labor cost so high. I said, okay, very simple. Produce the components, I ship to Batam to assemble. That's how I survived. So Thomson Electronics survived because assembly, there's no better instrument than the eyes, inspectable text. So the assembly test is very labor intensive. I went to Sumitomo Electric. They make all the wire harness for the automotive cars. They asked me for 500 workers. I said in Singapore, 500 workers to do automotive very tough. So I moved them to Batam. So I took 250 Indonesian kids, 12 years, 18 years old, 21, sent them to Japan for 6 months. Second batch, another batch for 2 months. By the way, they went to Japan with the Japanese government's approval on my letter of such requests. The Indonesian minister could not get his authority. I wrote to the Minister of Labor in Japan, I need these workers to be trained. So tomorrow we agreed to train them, take care of them. 500 Indonesian, and they produce all the assembly work. So Singapore can never go to assembly. But the parts and components produced by the time come to Singapore port, from Singapore port, ship over the world. So we still get services. So what people don't realize, Batam Industrial Port depends on Singapore port. Right? Not the other way around. So there are industries that I cannot do. If I go to Penang now, I have a factory down in aerospace. Penang is not having a labor problem. We produce parts for Airbus and Boeing. We have 1,700 workers there and still in manufacturing. They're labor tight. So they now also have to bring in foreign workers in Penang. Same problem as us. So now I create a new factory in Ayutthaya and Chonburi. Last year, November, I was in Chonburi to create 2 more companies to take some of the work from Penang to there. So now I have 400 workers in Thailand. By 2026, when the new factory is up, I should have 1,000 workers in Thailand.
So are there any industries that you regret, or any companies, industries that you regret bringing in, or they thought, well, I shouldn't have brought them in?
Well, we try every industry except casino. By the way, I was nearly involved with that, luckily. Because EDB was asked to do services. What services can we do? So one of the things was tourism. I left to tourism. Financial service, I left MAS. Logistics, we can do IT. A casino was also, China was with me. I remember we also went to Disney World, trying to get Disney to do Disneyland here. They asked 1,000 hectares. I don't have 1,000 hectares. So many of these projects are quite challenging because land and labor. So I would say in Singapore, the resource constraint of labor is a key constraint. There's no substitute. That's why we must always push to higher value, higher value added, more automation. If you look at our factories in Singapore, Joe, they are well automated. We have only less, in fact, the last statistic I checked was 12% of our labor force are in manufacturing. And we produce a respectable 19 to 10% of GDP. Most Singaporeans are not aware of that. Hong Kong manufacturing share of GDP, 1%. Not many people are aware. They have no manufacturing, because all went to Shenzhen. Right? Hong Kong is none. So 2 months ago, some friends from Hong Kong came to see me. We are taking a set of advisory board. Can you come and help us? Because they used to laugh at Singapore, you are all in manufacturing. What for you do manufacturing, their labor? And they said, no. Manufacturing depends which part of the value chain. What is Trump now trying to do? He's just trying to kill the 54 Chip Act. He says, look, TSMC is going to come here because I use tariff. There's no need to give money. So America now is desperately trying to get manufacturing back. Desperately get it back. But the key is that if all Americans are, thank God it's Thursday, not Friday, you cannot have manufacturing. And my industry is highly automated, highly dependent on big machines. The most important person for running a machine, besides the worker who's programming it, are the repair maintenance people. If the machine breaks down, I'm dead. So instead of buying one DMG machine, which is $1 million, I buy 3. Because the key problem of automation is maintenance personnel. The guy who repairs the machine. Machines all break down. No machine works forever. So you need good engineers, good maintenance people. That's why in Singapore we are smart to have polytechnic people. You know, when the machine breaks down, then you are stuck. Especially in an industry that is high value, high added, capital intensive, you cannot afford to shut down. So whenever I look at our factories in Penang, I always worry. We have enough technicians to repair because the machines will break down. And the machines cost a lot of money, $1 million. In fact, we bought 6 new machines for our factory in Penang. The machines didn't work. They fly technicians from Germany, spend months fixing it. And I told my people, don't pay the Germans, ask them to fix it first. Finally it worked. But show you buy more capital equipment, more maintenance. If you buy an electric car, when the car doesn't work, you have to run to the workshop, electronics guys there. So the more automated you are, the more digital you are, the more dependent on repair people, IT literate. And so therefore, like it or not, the skill set of our young Singaporeans in a polytechnic are very important. If you go to a hospital now, all the MRI machines, all the CT scans, all run by young people. And they're all poly people. They are obviously not philosophers. They are policy, keeping the machines going. So if you look at medical services, you go to a hospital, I see a sheer amount of equipment. You need good technicians, good engineers, besides doctors. In fact, the doctor is 1 or 2 guys. The rest of the hospital is, the cost of a hospital bed now is $1 million. One hospital bed, $1 million. And when the machine doesn't work, you have a problem.
Maybe we open up the floor to questions?
Yeah.
Yep. We'll take 2 or 3 questions at a go, and then we'll answer. Okay. Maybe there first, and then this gentleman there.
There's a mic there.
Yeah. No, I think we have a question up there.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Hi, this is Alistair here, right at the back. Thank you so much for sharing. The question I have is that just now, as we hear about kidnapping all those around the region and Singaporeans getting too comfortable waiting for vouchers only, what do you think is the fate of Singaporeans? Do you think that because we have been too comfortable with the policies, government being very efficient, that we are not adventurous to venture around outside of Singapore, too tight back here to the BTO, and we need to just go through the whole system in life? What do you think will happen to Singaporeans if we continue to be that way? And what do you think we can do?
Okay, thank you. One more question, maybe, this gentleman.
Yeah, my name is Satya. I am from a bank called SMBC. Mr. Yeo, before I ask my question, your advice on one bag is particularly relevant today post-COVID because so many bags get lost. My question is with regard to Johor-Singapore SEZ. I was particularly interested in the early part where you talked about how we are not dependent on services in the region, but now it's obviously much more important to work in the region to grow economic output. And Johor and the Malaysian relationship is obviously has been a tenuous one. So from the economic growth point of view, how do you think Singapore can make JSSEZ a successful economic multiplier for Singapore?
Okay,
Thank you.
got it.
Okay.
Maybe one more question, and then
Yeah.
the gentleman there. Yeah, and then just hold on for the next round. Yeah.
Hi. Just 2 very short questions.
Okay.
One, about if Singapore is going to move into more high value-added sectors because it can't compete on labor costs, then what is the industries that's going to absorb surplus employment? So how do we deal with the problem of employment if we're going to move into industries that require less and less labor? And then the second question I had is, as I understand it from the history of Singapore, EDB held a very premier position as like the head of Singapore's developmental state, and lots of the top brass came from EDB, like yourself. But now, as the permanent minister said, with other industries taking fore, and even places like IMDA and MAS even playing a developmental role, what is the role of EDB today, does it still hold that central developmental role? Does it have to work with other development agencies as well? Thank you.
Okay, great. Maybe let's start with the first question.
Okay.
Kidnapping, and are Singaporeans too comfortable?
You know what we should do is that the Ministry of Education should arrange for our secondary school kids to send to Cambodia, Vietnam, do a semester there. The kids there are hungry. You know, Singaporean kids do not realize you go to Vietnam, our factories now we have 18 parks under Sembcorp when I was chairman there. The Vietnamese kids are very hungry. So the difficulties for Singaporean kids, they always look at the American model, European model, holiday, Disney World. Hey, you go to Vietnam, they have no Disney World, they are struggling. When I first set the industrial park there, they're all working very hard. So the key is that maybe one way for Ministry of Education is to periodically send our students not to America, send to our ASEAN neighbors to see how people live there, work there, do their attachment there. That's why I suggested to, because I chair the Nanyang Business School, I said, why not get our students go into a sting with some of our neighboring countries, because our neighborhood is still a big gap with us, and our young people there are more hungry. And there's no other solution unless the parents take away their pocket money.
Second question, Johor-Singapore SEZ.
Yeah,
Given the political difficulties.
The Deputy Minister of Trade Industry, Liu Jin-tong, came to see me 2 months ago, asking me what can I do with Singapore-Johor zone. So I told him, if I were a Johor engineer and you pay me 4,000 ringgit, I come to Singapore, get 4,000 Singapore dollars. You think I will stay in Johor? Because the gap is serious. So I said, really, if you are going to produce in Johor, I cannot pay them a Singapore salary. Or let's say you joke with me, why not pay them 2/3? So let's say my Singapore engineer is 4,000. That convert to Malaysian currency about 12,000 ringgit.
Mm-hmm.
So the Malaysian, my Johor, my Penang engineers already paid 5,000 ringgit. So I told him it's not possible to do manufacturing there because you need, unless it's pure labor assembly, if you want to higher value, and Johor is short of labor. I said the only industry I can see there is education, healthcare, retirement homes, jokingly. Services are area because that's the area. Look, even healthcare is not a minor thing because the healthcare, you need good doctors, need nurses. So for manufacturing, it's quite a difficult job. Okay, data centers, they now have approved 20 data centers. Mm-hmm. You know what data center? Power hungry, water hungry, and very few workers inside. You go to a data center, it's all computers, all the wire is there, you need it cool. The guy will sit down there, control station, control, make sure all the batteries are working. The construction of data centers require workers. The moment the construction sector is done, the sector running, very few jobs. I sent an article around to some colleagues, say, read. You know, to build a data center require construction engineers, but once it's done, very few people need it. So Johor has approved more than 20. And now they realize it's, better increase electricity rates on them. Right? It's a fact, because why should we subsidize? You know, unless you got hydropower, it's cheap. Right? Like in Bhutan, they tried with cryptocurrency. They spent $1 billion on, because they got hydropower generate. A data center is just tons and tons of computer running it. Whether it's our friend from NVIDIA chips. They are basically a computer set, that almost like a PC. And they use a lot of energy. And you need to cool. You need good cooling system there. But very few jobs. So Johor, my view is that really, you should treat Johor as Singapore's hinterland without political implication. It could make sense. If I can live in Johor, in fact, I was telling the minister, deputy minister, once you are RTS, more of the Johor people will take the train to Singapore to work. Because our housing costs are so high, why I want to live in Singapore? If the train is about 30 minutes, it makes more sense for Johor people to live there and work here. In fact, also for Singaporeans to live there and work here. Unless HDB cool down the costs. It's a fact of life, because I went to Forest City. Look, They are having for 3,000 ringgit per square foot, a good quality one. That's about only 1,000 Sing. Our condominiums here are going for 3,000 per square foot Singapore dollars. So in Penang, it's different because we have moved to Penang a long time. My Penang engineers are only paid 5,000 ringgit. They now complain because housing there is cheaper, affordable. But even 5,000 ringgit with labor type, eventually have to go to 6,000. Well, 6,000 ringgit divided by 3 is 2,000 Sing. My engineers here cost about 5,000 Sing. Mm-hmm. So the gap is very high. I mean, I go to Johor, I go to Penang. My asthma drug is $84 here. I buy in Penang, I actually pay only about $32. So Singapore should go and buy more drugs from Johor.
They come from the same factory.
Yeah.
They come from the same factory.
It's true. Eh? So I was very honest with him. He knows me quite well because I knew him when young. He's now Deputy Minister, Liu Ching-tong. I said, if you're really going to have manufacturing in Johor, it will be a challenge. Unless you allow me more foreign workers, right? That means I got to do more of the labor type. If you want a Johor engineer, the Johor engineer will not stay there. It will come to Singapore. Take the RTS. It's a fact of life. So I'm being frank to him. So fortunately, he's a politician going to get election. He's the MP for that area. Iskandar Putri, he's the MP there. He won the election a few times, so he's worried about jobs. I say, most of the Malaysians are working in Singapore here. Maybe what the fact, we should all live in Johor and work in Singapore.
So maybe third question, we're moving from to a higher value added economy. And so he's asking, right, what's the industry that's going to absorb all this surplus employment as employment becomes, manufacturing employment shrinks?
Yeah. Manufacturing employment, the last statistic is less than 15%, 12%.
12%.
So now most of Singapore's are in services. And as you know, services productivity is not very high. It's quite tough you cannot automate it. And the reality is that we have to depend more on domestic market. So going forward, I think we're a challenge for government how to make sure that there's enough jobs for Singaporeans in the services sector. The services sector, either it's medical services, healthcare services, teaching services. The other none, for example, in a restaurant business, it's quite tough. You see a lot of food and beverage company, labor is tight, costs are high, they close. So economically, going forward, it's quite a challenge because you're now so dependent on domestic market and the costs are high, so it's a big challenge. Whoever is MP of the area better worry because it's a fact of life. Eh? Jurong will always try. If you go to Jurong now and more traffic jam, there are too many vehicles going down. Because they can automate, they can upgrade, they use fewer people. I will eventually think our employment or manufacturing may be down 10%. Mm-hmm. 10%. When I was first worked, manufacturing employment of share of manufacturing employment, 25, maybe 30. Now we're down to 12, 15%. It can even go down to 10%. But more engineers, more technicians, less blue-collar worker. You see, if you look at my automated machines, big machines, the worker doesn't do anything, just program. They stand down there, watch the machine. It's not. And the whole place is air conditioned. It's not dirty, it's clean. So the idea of factories are dirty is not true. In fact, the floor is spotless clean. It's better than a hospital because I cannot spill oil. And 24/7, fully aircon.
In a sense, it plays to our strength because our population is shrinking. We're also more educated.
So the challenge is politically how to find enough jobs. This is not only Singapore. You look at the automotive industry in Japan, in Germany. The automotive industry is dependent on mechanical engineering. Pistons, engines, cylinder, transmission, gearbox. Those are all gone. What is an electric car? A golf cart. The battery, 4 wheels, a motor. In fact, the EV car either DC to AC, because motors run better AC. One motor behind, induction motor, one in front. The next step, they will have a motor for every wheel, so your car can park sideways. Okay. So where are the jobs for more and more countries will face a problem? Because if the EV, Frankfurt, of course, Stuttgart will be in trouble. Nagoya will be in trouble because all the mechanical industry are gone. There's no radiator in the car now. So I can imagine any country, that's why China is smart. They jump straight to EV because all electronics. That's why the electronic industry or semiconductors are very important to China. Today, the EV car in China is not a car, it's an entertainment system. So everything is music, entertainment, everything is there. So now they have a new rare article, there are a lot of graveyard, because a lot of new EV cars start up, and company collapse. You got the car, but your software is out of date. You got the car, electric car, is basically a computer on wheels. It's not your normal automotive engine, right? The challenge is that the electric car is still more expensive than ICE, but BYD have brought the price down to almost as good as 10,000, and they are focusing on sheer volume. So if the key cost of electric car is the battery is coming down faster. So a lot of changes. China uses lithium iron phosphate battery. The Western country use manganese, cobalt, different batteries. And Chinese batteries are supposed to be safer unless they switch. So if you look at key in electric car industry is chemistry, semiconductors. Induction motor, AC-DC converters are standard. And the key is software, entertainment system, software. In fact, a good electric car, there's no need to go to a workshop. All the software is downloaded. It's just that Apple asks you to update your software. So electric car really will change the whole employment. Big change for US, Germany, and Japan.
Yep.
Now, the key advantage, people are scared of what called range worry. So, okay, who has said, BYD say they are aiming for 1,000 kilometers, one charge. That comes about. But really, most of us in cities, we don't need 1,000 kilometers. From Jurong to Changi is only about 40 kilometers. So really, we are driving, at most we are about 100 kilometers a day. So there's no need for range anxiety, but it's all meant for worry. So now there's a grab, more and more hybrid cars.
Yep.
That's the only thing, so worry them.
Maybe the last question in this group, does EDB still play a central development role?
Well, I hope so, because someone has to bring in the bacon to Singapore. You see, EDB is different from Temasek or GIC. When you are GIC, people come and kiss their hands, please invest in me, or in EDB, we have to kiss there. It's a tougher job, and we are competing against. I just had a Zoom last night. My Indonesian friends, the new CIO, Chief Investment Officer of Danantara. So they asked me to Zoom in at 10 o'clock. They want to Zoom to 12. I said, sorry, I got about 1 hour. And they are trying to build up the Sovereign Welfare Fund. Pandu, I was tell us international, because I like, because myself, friends from US, from Europe, are all zooming in to help them. You know, to me, Indonesians are worth chasing. They are quite keen. So I told you, well, we have two sovereign funds. We've got Temasek and GIC, very different. One invests in assets, one's in equities and so on. So trying to learn. In fact, they're supposed to come next week. I said, well, if I'm free, I'll join you, otherwise. So I get requests for free advice. I never charge Lin Ching Tong. I didn't charge my Indonesian friends, because I Zoom, so I don't have to travel, I don't complain. But when Ching Tong comes to see me, I'll give my advice. So I come to a point where I get unpaid, give free advice.
Great,
So
let's go.
hopefully EDB remains important, yeah.
Next round of questions. Gentlemen here.
Is this okay? Yeah. Hi. Thanks, Mr. Yeo. Thanks, Mr. Cheng. My name is Kwong Yi. I was a biophysicist, then I changed to law. So my question is more technical. Concerning two technologies. One is quantum physics, quantum, and the other one is nuclear. Okay, so my first question is concerning quantum. Quantum, as most technical people would know, there is a step up concerning as opposed to classical systems, quantum computing as opposed to classical computing. So my question is, given the different nature, I want to pick your mind on these questions. Given the different nature of quantum, what kind of business models can we build around quantum to leverage on the technology? That's one question. Question two is nuclear. It seems to me that my takeaway from this conversation is that Singapore needs industries that are very dense, high density, high value density industries. So I think quantum and nuclear are two of those industries. My question for nuclear is this. Where do you think we can put our nuclear plants in Singapore, given your previous experience doing petrochemicals in Jurong Island? And where can we source for all the inputs, thorium, all the different raw materials? That's question 2.
Okay.
Third question is, last question. My last question is, what are your thoughts on the ASEAN power grid? Thanks.
Okay. Quantum nuclear ASEAN power grid. Someone else? Yep. Are you asking questions?
Somebody there.
Okay, great.
There's a lady there.
Oh, where?
I've been waving my hand for a long time, so
sorry.
I'm going to try to grab.
I'll come to you soon. After, maybe the lady first, since she's been waiting there for a while. Sorry, I missed you.
Hi, I'm Irene Ho. I'd like to find out what you think about the problems facing Singapore in the future relating to what's been happening with the NVIDIA chips.
Okay.
What kind of problems, and it just kind of pointed to me that there's something interesting going on, and we are likely to get more of this kind of thing as the trading environment gets tougher.
Okay, great, thank you. This gentleman here.
Thank you. So I'm going to sneak in this question. My name is Andre. I'm a subscriber of your notion that manufacturing is important for the country. So my question is on manufacturing. If in the 1980s we were known to be cheaper and faster as our value proposition to the world, in today's new world, right, what should Singapore's design principle be and value proposition to the world in manufacturing? Should we still be cheaper and faster? Is that still relevant, or what should we be? I think that is the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe one last one, this gentleman there.
Sir, thank you for your sharing. My name is W2. I've been spending the past 12 years between Singapore and West Johor. May I have your concurrence that in order for innovation to happen, one has to break existing rules? I've admired you for your past record in the art of breaking rules without getting into trouble. So, for the sake of the survival of the future of Singapore, in my very non-educated opinion, we need to break some rules. We need to be more empathetic to Southeast Asia. We need to be more multilingual and make more effort to understand and to speak regional languages. So with your very big influence in society and in the system, what are your suggestions for us Singaporeans to be able to go forward and be a step ahead of the competition? Because from my grassroots perspective in Peninsular Malaysia and in Singapore, I find that the Malaysians are much more humanistic, empathetic to close the deal and to make things happen, unlike the many young Singaporeans I see today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go through questions quite quickly because we have 10 minutes left, but maybe just a comment first on quantum, nuclear, and then the ASEAN power grid.
Well, recently Microsoft announced that they got a quantum computer running. There's an article on my table where the scientific community disagreed. They claiming, so nobody knows. But I think the AI move faster than quantum computing. That's a fact. So a lot of the quantum things, China has also quantum computing, and they're quite expensive. They're using qubits. So it's still, it's like a holy chalice of computing, quantum, yeah. So between AI, I think AI can do faster because you can, you don't have to be so hardware demanding. Quantum is quite hardware demanding, it's quite expensive, yeah.
Your views on nuclear?
Huh?
Your views on nuclear power?
No, nuclear power,
asked,
I was
should the
talking
reactor
to
be?
Abu Dhabi. They are now going for small nuclear power plants. Small nuclear power plants, in a sense, 100 megawatt, 200 megawatt. So The future to them is dispersed rather than have one big nuclear power plant of 2,000 megawatts. And also, in a sense, it's also safer. So some countries are experimenting on that. Not many of you are aware, in 1970s, Teng Soon, Han Cheng Fong, including myself, many of us were taking out physics. Because the Singapore government looked at nuclear power in 1970s. So I was accepted by NUS to do physics. Lam Chuan was accepted for physics. Han Cheng Fong was nuclear physics. Teng Soon, but there's no nuclear power plant, so most are unemployed. Now in America, nuclear physics is coming back. In China, they are producing 10 nuclear power plants per year. France has 54 nuclear power plants. Germany is hard luck. Now, so French sell to Germany. Now, the demand for nuclear power plants, not the giant ones, the small ones, is coming back. So if you are a smart student, nuclear engineering is back business again.
So what's your view on the viability of the ASEAN power grid?
Well, the ASEAN power grid has been discussed for a long time. The key is compatibility in different systems. You need to harmonize and standardize. So I don't know whether they can achieve that. I think with us and Johor is possible. Indonesia, some people talk about linking to Batam, but you go to Jakarta, not too sure. Because it's a physical constraints. We are not one landmass, we are separated by water and so are not so easy. But either going to small nuclear power plants is a possibility. In fact, we did. In the 70s, we looked at Tekong. When I was in Media, maybe put a nuclear power plant in Tekong, but everybody's scared that people in Changi get fried. But today it's not. The nuclear power plant is smaller. It's possible. So you watch what the people are doing now in the Middle East. Some countries doing it. Abu Dhabi is doing it. Smaller ones. And also the whole process of the nuclear material being used. So it will come. But the cost is high. You can bring it down. So it's like district cooling, now can district power. Why not? So whether we are willing to experiment. Maybe we can put a small nuclear power plant and our military camp Tekong, supply all the people in Changi.
Okay, moving swiftly on. Next question is on NVIDIA, the recent NVIDIA case, and also the fact that we are going to see a lot more export controls for chips.
Yeah.
So how would that affect Singapore?
Well, in NVIDIA, China constitutes 12% of its market revenue. So NVIDIA is now caught between China and US. And although they downgrade the chip to H20, whatever, but what's happening that the Chinese are doing their own chips. Huawei is doing their own chips, Alibaba their own chips, a matter of time. And they have the chip design, they have SMIC, the semiconductor industry of China. So the more the Americans put a squeeze on China, you force them to be independent. If they are smart, we sell them, they can always raise the price. Well, the Chinese are not stupid people. They have enough engineers. So whether it's SMIC with Huawei or Alibaba, they will do it. Maybe not the fastest chip. That's what DeepSeek has done. So the reality, NVIDIA depends on China market. So in a sense, so I was told that NVIDIA, Chinese New Year, went all the way to China to talk to all the customers. Please buy my chip. Right? Don't forget, NVIDIA is not a new company. It's been around for a long time. They were doing graphic chips for gaming. All the chips for gaming, people who sit on the game, spend hours. So that become important in the AI because it's all either training the chip or inference the chip. So NVIDIA is doing well. AMD tried, has not done well. There are not many other countries, other companies in NVIDIA.
That's right.
Yeah,
but what's the implication for Singapore? I think the lady was asking.
Well, so far we are allowed to buy. Hopefully we are, some people are selling to Malaysia. But if our companies can use H20 or better chips, I see no reason why we can't build up support, do more training and development. It can be done. So Singapore is still in the green card. We are not on the blacklist. Now America is tightening up, but it makes no sense. The more they tighten up, the more the Chinese will do it. Yeah, I'm quite sure they will do it. I remember when Chu Long Chi was Prime Minister, I used to come to Singapore with chit-chat. I said there are two key industries for China. One, semiconductor, and two, chemicals. So I took it to Jurong Island. I showed you the semiconductor plant. Now in China has all the petrochemical themselves. Our petrochemical question mark. Semiconductor, they do it. In fact, when I was talking, he was PM. First, he was DPM, PM. I said, why do you have 20 provinces buying their own semiconductor plant? Out of date, 20 micron machines. Because in China, there's no national policy. Every problem wants to be king. Every problem wants to be a semiconductor king. You know, China is more competitive than America. So 100 EV cars, most will die anyway, eventually left for it. How many EV cars are there in America? Tesla, GM tried, Ford tried, and then Rivian died. China is very competitive. The problem is it's a very wasteful system because everyone compete, many scholars left behind, but they will survive. So in the NVIDIA chip, NVIDIA's greatest threat is China, not any other company in America, not AMD even.
Mm-hmm. Next question, manufacturing. What's our value proposition? Is it still cheaper, better and faster?
Well, we are no longer cheaper, for sure. The key in high value added, you need talent. So we can train enough bright, smart Singapore who are not cheap, and they can be productive. They are not, thank God it's Thursday, we can survive. That's my view. Unless the government thinks that we should give everybody thank God it's Thursday. You know, thank God it's Thursday is not a joke, you know. Because there was reading a report about TSMC. TSMC started the factory in Phoenix, Arizona. They sell all the Taiwanese. The American engineers, when they quit. This is slave labor. They want to have a, thank God it's Thursday. The Chinese Taiwanese go down now. Now they got Taiwanese restaurant, Chinese school for the kids. You know, semiconductor industry is capital intensive. You need people who can run on shift. Manage the place on shift is not a holiday camp, you know. It's not a Disney World, but the value system must be there. You look at our semiconductor plant, you should visit. The guys are working because it has to be run on 3 shifts to 4 shifts. There's no such thing as we work Friday and then switch off. So for Singapore, our cost is a challenge. Our biggest challenge is not enough manpower. We don't have enough engineers, quality engineers, we are worried. So maybe we should go and kidnap some more. All the principals of Singapore secondary school should go around hunting. Give scholarships to ASEAN neighbor kids. What's wrong? We can afford 4 years of secondary education, even 6 years of education. After that, if I still 100, 20 stay are good enough. We don't have enough kids in our schools now, no. Some of the schools are closing shop because no more babies.
So last question of this set, right, from that gentleman there. He talked about breaking rules and whether, you know, the art of breaking rules, right? And what are some of the suggestions you have for Singapore to go forward?
Well, if you break rules, you must expect to be sacked. So if you are not afraid of being sacked, then you carry on. If you are scared of your job. No, when I work with Dr. Goh, as far as I'm concerned, I can always walk out anytime. In fact, I don't believe I'm a civil servant. I mean, I'm not obliged to stay, I can always walk out. So I can do all the things and break the rules. Provided I break the rules, not my personal benefit. But I break the rules for the national gain, for the, they have gained the company, I don't see any crime. Right? Because at the end of the day, I'm trying to shortcut. I give you an example. When I came back in 76, Dr. Goh asked me, CIS, SAA, ODA was 455. So I took over SAA, IRAJA, Singapore Automotive Engineering. All the tanks were in the workshop. There's no space. How to work? So I looked across. I saw 2 nice football field. Compliments of the British Army. So at lunchtime, I told Dr. Goh, the football field not much use. He smiled at me. I didn't say anything. At 5 o'clock, I called my officer, consider the wire. 1 football field gone. Right? Winston Chu complained to him, he laughed. He said, go talk to Philip. I told Winston, look, you don't need 2 football fields to play. Most of the time, football is growing grass. So that's how SA became, and I didn't have to pay for rent for the space, better still.
Okay, we only have time for one last question here, and I want to give one question to the people who are zooming in. So maybe one question with this gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Yeo. Lexon from MINDEF. So actually you talked about China, you talked about US. So I guess in your experience or across all those many decades of traveling to these countries, what in your view are the enduring comparative advantage of the countries you have been to, the US, China, perhaps even regionally as well?
What is the competitive advantage of
the enduring comparative advantage, yes.
The advantage
of engineering?
Oh, no, of the various countries, the US, China, whether or not, based on your experiences traveling to these countries, you feel that at their core, this is just something that, you know, they are...
Well, if we look at US and China, China has a population that is 4 times, 5 times, depending on the educated population. You go to American PhD programs, most are not American kids. Yeah, you go to PhD program, you look at MIT, Caltech. Most of them are Asians. I remember when I was in the promoting semiconductors over IC industry, Indians and Chinese. So if you look at higher education, the American kids are not a very large number in PhD program. It's a fact of life. In China, they have all the kids are 100% Chinese. Whether they're all the same quality, I don't know. They got lots of universities, not all top grade. The sheer numbers, you see. So it's a value system. Most Chinese students go to America to study engineering. None of them go there to study philosophy. Right? And it's a value system. No, they say they are not interested in politics, but really, that's the way it is. If you go to Taiwan, many of the kids are studying engineering. Right? It's a fact of life. So if you look at America and China is competing on talent. Yeah? And talent, the disadvantage of China is homogeneous, only Chinese. America, technically, are smart, they can steal for everybody. I remember I went to Toronto to visit aerospace group. There was 2019. I look at aerospace, Canada is interested in aerospace. I meet all the engineers there, I look at him, you are from Iran. I said, I should know, I've been in Iran. Iranian engineers. So if a country can steal people, like America or Canada, they can always supplement, replace that. Thank God it's the type of people. Okay. So advantage of America, immigration of good value people is available. Yeah. On the other hand, China has its own population. So the strength ultimately is talent. And there's no other, equipment you can buy from the same companies. What counts is here.
Last question from someone online, maybe just to end us off. Can the Singapore economic story last for another 60 years?
Then my answer is not my problem.
All right, on that note, let's give a round of applause.
Thank you, Mr. Yeo and Mr. Chin. We've come to the end of today's lecture. We'd like to hear your views on the event. Please click our link on the Facebook feed or scan the QR code on the screen to submit your feedback. Mr. Philip Yeo's second lecture, titled Transforming Singapore's Economy Through Research and Development, will take place on 27 March. Details will be on our website and IPS Facebook page. We hope to see you then. Thank you.